After the divorce, the woman was left alone with her little daughter. No one wanted to hire her, and out of desperation, she took a job at a gas station. One evening, after filling up an expensive SUV, she noticed a set of keys fall out of a man's pocket. "Wait, you dropped this!" the woman shouted, but then she fell silent as she looked closely at the keychain. The millionaire, who had walked back toward her, went cold when he saw what the woman showed him. Keisha Vance had been married to Marcus for 6 years. All that time she endured his insults, humiliation, and even physical abuse. He considered himself a gift of fate that she had to earn. And one day, he decided to leave the family. Keisha sat on the edge of the toddler bed, rocking 4-year-old Layla in her arms. The little girl was burning up like a hot coal. Her cheeks were flushed with an unhealthy glow, and her breathing had become rapid and shallow. "Mommy, I don't feel good," the little one whispered pitifully, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. "Just hold on, baby. The medicine will kick in soon, and you'll feel better." Keisha pulled her daughter closer, trying to transfer some of her own warmth and confidence to her. She glanced at the bottle of fever reducer on the nightstand. The pink liquid barely covered the bottom. There was enough for 1, maybe 2 doses at most. The thermometer read 101.7, high, but not critical. Keisha repeated this mantra to herself over and over, trying to calm down. She moistened a towel with cool water and placed it on her daughter's forehead. Layla whimpered quietly. "Hush now, sunshine. Everything is going to be all right. Mama is here." At that moment, the lock on the front door clicked. Keisha's heart beat faster, as if trying to leap out of her chest. She instinctively listened to the sounds in the hallway, trying to guess her husband's mood by his footsteps and the way the door slammed. Over 6 years of marriage, she had mastered this art to perfection. It was a matter of survival. Heavy footsteps approached. Marcus didn't take off his boots, a bad sign. It meant he had a bad day. It meant he was angry. Keisha involuntarily shrank, hugging Layla tighter. The door to the nursery flew open. Marcus appeared on the threshold, a tall, broad-shouldered man of 32 with dark hair and cold gray eyes. Once, Keisha thought those eyes were beautiful. Now they seemed icy to her, devoid of warmth. "So here you are," he mumbled, looking over his wife and daughter. "Why isn't dinner on the table?" Keisha swallowed, trying to speak as quietly and calmly as possible. "Layla is sick. High fever. I didn't have time. I'm sorry, she'll feel a little better soon, and I'll heat it up." "You should have done that before I got home." Marcus's voice grew harder. "I'm sick of you. You always find some excuse. Either you have a headache, or the kid is sick, or you make something else up." "Marcus, I'm not making it up. Look at her yourself." Keisha turned her daughter slightly so her husband could see the toddler's flushed face. "So what? Kids get sick, that's no reason to forget your duties." He crossed his arms over his chest. "You know, I slave away like the damned all day providing for this family, and I come home. And what? Dinner isn't ready. No respect." Keisha felt something tighten inside her. She had heard this conversation 100 times, if not more. But today, there was something new in Marcus's voice. "That's it." He ran a hand over his face. "I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. I'm leaving you." Time seemed to stop. Keisha looked at her husband, unable to believe what she was hearing. Her heart pounded somewhere in her throat. Blood hammered in her temples. A carousel of thoughts spun in her head. How would she live with her daughter without a provider? Where would she get money? How would she pay rent? What would she feed the child? Yes, she endured the humiliation and beatings, hid the bruises under her clothes, and stifled her tears in her pillow at night. But he at least supported the family. He gave them a roof over their heads and food on the table. "You're leaving?" Keisha's voice trembled. "Where? What about us?" Tears welled up in her eyes on their own. She didn't even try to hold them back. "Listen, I don't have to answer to you." Marcus's voice became increasingly furious. He was clearly getting worked up. "I warned you not to nag me. How much can I take? I'm tired of your constant whining, tired of you always being unhappy about something. I'm not whining, I just— Shut up! He barked so loud that Layla flinched in her mother's arms and started crying. That's exactly what you always do. I finally found someone who appreciates me for who I am, someone who will be grateful for what I do, not an eternally dissatisfied cow. Keisha inhaled sharply. So, there was another woman. She had always suspected this would happen sooner or later. Marcus often stayed late at work. He smelled of strange perfume. There were traces of lipstick on his shirts that weren't her shade. Even so, she had tried to preserve at least a drop of dignity. "What about your daughter?" Layla was sobbing, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. She didn't understand what was happening, but she felt the tension. "It still needs to be proven that she's mine," Marcus spat out with contempt, casting a glance at the crying child. These words hit Keisha harder than any physical blow. Her eyes went wide, unable to believe her ears. "How can you say that? You know Layla is your daughter. You were with me in the delivery room. You were the first to hold her. You—" A lump rose in her throat, preventing her from finishing. "How do I know who you were messing around with?" Marcus sneered coldly. "Maybe the neighbor or someone else?" "I never—" "You are the only man in my life," whispered Keisha, feeling tears roll down her cheeks. "The only one." "Yeah, sure. Anyway, I don't have time to discuss this." He turned around and walked into the bedroom. Keisha heard him opening the closet, heard the hangers rattling. Layla cried louder. "Hush, baby, hush!" Keisha rocked her daughter, barely holding back her own sobs. "It's okay, sunshine. Mama is with you." She carefully laid the girl on the bed, covered her with a blanket, and kissed her hot forehead. "Lie quietly. I'll be right back." Keisha wiped her tears with the back of her hand and went into the bedroom. Marcus was throwing things into a large duffel bag. Shirts, jeans, socks, everything flew in indiscriminately. Her life was shattering into thousands of fragments, and he was getting ready to leave as if it were just a regular business trip. "Marcus, please!" Keisha's voice trembled. "At least give us some money to get by. You know I don't have a dime, and the medicine is running out. Layla needs a doctor, she needs pills." He straightened up, threw one more shirt into the bag, and turned to his wife. A smirk played on his face. "Look at you singing now," he drawled. "Just yesterday you said you hated me, that you wished I was dead, and today you're ready to beg on your knees." "I didn't say I wished you were dead," Keisha tried to object. "I said I was tired of your—" "It doesn't matter what you said," Marcus cut her off. "The fact is, without me you are nobody, and you know it perfectly well." Keisha swallowed. Her pride demanded she turn around and leave, slamming the door. But before her eyes stood feverish Layla, the almost empty bottle of medicine, the empty refrigerator. She had no choice. "Yes, if I have to, I'm ready to get on my knees." She looked into his eyes, trying to find at least a spark of humanity there. "You know I don't have a job, and I have no one to borrow from. Mom died a long time ago. I don't know my father, and I have no friends. You wouldn't let me talk to anyone." "Those weren't prohibitions, that was care." Marcus waved her off. "I didn't want anyone teaching you bad things." He zipped up the bag and walked right up to Keisha. She smelled the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with tobacco smoke. "You know what, Keisha?" He spoke almost affectionately, but venom seeped through his voice. "You've always been weak, dependent. Without me, you are nobody and nothing." Marcus abruptly grabbed her by the hair, yanking her head back. Keisha gasped in pain. "These aren't my problems anymore," he whispered in her ear. "You understand? I am free, and you can go anywhere you want, even the streets." He let her go, grabbed the bag, and headed for the door. Keisha stood there, pressing her hand to her aching head, unable to move. Tears veiled her eyes. "Marcus, wait!" she shouted after him. "Just give me a little money, please." He stopped at the door without turning around. "There is nothing left for you," he threw over his shoulder and walked out. Keisha heard the front door slam, heard the lock click. She sank to the floor right in the middle of the bedroom, wrapping her arms around herself. Sobs burst from her chest against her will. 6 years. She had endured for 6 years. She hoped he would change, that everything would work out. She believed his promises that he would never raise a hand to her again, that it would get better. And he left. He tossed them aside like a tired toy and didn't even leave money for medicine for his own daughter. Layla's crying came from the nursery. Keisha wiped her tears, stood up on trembling legs, and went to her daughter. Whatever her own feelings were, the girl needed her mother. Right now, she was Layla's only support in this world. "Mommy is coming, sunshine," she said, trying to make her voice sound calm. "Everything is okay. Mama is here." She picked the hot little girl up and applied the cool towel to her forehead again. Layla buried her face in her shoulder, whimpering. Keisha quietly hummed a lullaby, rocking her daughter, while she herself thought about only one thing. What were they going to do next? How to survive without money, without a job, without support? She had no answers, only fear, cold and all-consuming. The night dragged on endlessly. Keisha never closed her eyes, sitting next to her daughter's bed. Layla tossed and turned in her sleep, woke up often, and cried. The fever would drop a little, then rise again. Every time the girl started to whine, Keisha picked her up, rocked her, and sang lullabies with a voice hoarse from tears. The last drops of the fever reducer ran out around 3 a.m. Keisha shook literally just a few drops out of the bottle, diluted them with water, and gave it to her daughter. Layla obediently drank it and buried her face in her mother's shoulder again. "Mommy, I feel so bad," the girl whispered. "I know, sunshine. Just endure it a little longer. In the morning we'll buy new medicine, and you'll feel better right away." Keisha spoke these words, not believing them herself. In the morning? With what money? Her wallet was empty, absolutely nothing. Marcus had always controlled the finances, issuing her strictly calculated amounts for food and essentials. No savings, no stash. He watched that. The woman was in a completely hopeless situation. When it started to get light outside, Keisha carefully put Layla, who had finally fallen asleep, into bed and went to the kitchen. She had to come up with something, urgently. She opened the refrigerator, almost empty. A few eggs, a piece of cheese, a carton of milk, enough for 2 or 3 days if she scrimped. Keisha brewed herself some strong tea. She didn't even add sugar. She was saving it. She sat at the table, holding her head in her hands. Her temples throbbed from the sleepless night, her eyes burned, and there was absolute emptiness in her soul. She didn't know how to go on living. She didn't know at all. The clock showed mid-morning. Keisha finished her cold tea and made up her mind. There was only one person she could turn to. Miss Hattie, the neighbor from the 3rd floor, a woman of about 65, always friendly, always with a kind word. They sometimes met in the hallway and exchanged a few phrases. Miss Hattie often praised Layla, saying what a beautiful girl she was. Keisha knew the neighbor heard the fights. The walls in the building were thin, and Marcus never held back. Several times Miss Hattie had delicately asked if everything was all right, if help was needed. But Keisha always waved it off, ashamed to admit that her life had turned into a nightmare. Now there was no choice. She washed her face with cold water, trying to make herself look somewhat presentable. The face in the mirror was pale, with dark circles under the eyes, swollen from tears. Keisha ran a hand through her hair, braided it into a messy plait, and put on an old sweater, the only one that was more or less decent. Layla was still sleeping. Keisha quietly closed the nursery door and went out into the hallway. She went up to the 3rd floor. She stood before the door, gathering her courage. Her hand trembled when she pressed the doorbell. A minute later, the door opened. On the threshold stood Miss Hattie, a short, heavy-set woman with gray hair gathered in a neat bun. She was wearing a floral housecoat and soft slippers on her feet. Kind brown eyes looked attentively at Keisha. "Keisha, you're up so early?" The woman was surprised. "Did something happen?" "Miss Hattie, I'm sorry to bother you." Keisha swallowed the lump in her throat. "Could you lend me some money?" Her voice trembled. A little more, and she would burst into tears right there in the stairwell. Miss Hattie looked at her intently, and Keisha saw understanding in that gaze. The woman stepped aside. "Come in, child. We're not going to talk on the stairs." Keisha walked into the small apartment. It was clean, cozy, and smelled of fresh baking and something floral. Photos hung on the walls. Young Miss Hattie with a man, then with a child, then grandchildren. "Go to the kitchen. I'll put some tea on right now," the hostess bustled. "No need, thank you. Sit down," Miss Hattie repeated gently but firmly. Keisha obediently sank onto a chair. The neighbor put on the kettle, took out 2 cups, a sugar bowl, and a dish with cookies. She sat opposite her. "Tell me, what happened?" Keisha lowered her gaze, examining her hands folded in her lap. It was so hard to start. To admit aloud that she had been abandoned, that she was left without means to survive, that she couldn't even buy medicine for her sick child. "Yes," she finally squeezed out. "Marcus left us for another woman without leaving a dime. Layla has a fever and there's no money at all." The words seemed to break a dam. Keisha felt tears welling up in her eyes again. "The medicine ran out last night. I don't know what to do. I have no one to borrow from. Absolutely no one." Her voice broke into a whisper. Miss Hattie was silent, then sighed heavily. "What a jerk," she swore unexpectedly sharply. Keisha even flinched at such a reaction from the usually calm neighbor. Excuse the expression, but there's no other way to say it. To leave a wife with a sick child without money, that's beyond the pale. She got up, turned off the boiling kettle, and poured water into the cups. "It's okay, child, you'll manage." Her voice became softer, almost motherly. "At least he won't raise a hand to you anymore. I heard everything. Don't think I didn't." Keisha shuddered and felt her cheeks flush with shame. "You heard?" "Of course I heard. The walls are thin. I wanted to intervene many times, was going to call the police, but I know that in such cases wives usually protect their tyrant husbands. I was afraid of making it worse for you." Miss Hattie pushed the cup of tea and cookies toward Keisha. "Drink. Don't be shy, and eat a little. You probably didn't sleep all night. Didn't eat anything." "I can't," whispered Keisha. "Layla is alone at home sleeping. I just to borrow enough for medicine. I'll pay you back. I will definitely pay you back. As soon as—" She wanted to explain that she would try to find a job as soon as possible, that she would return the debt, that she wasn't a beggar. The woman stood up, opened a drawer in the dresser, took out a wallet, and counted out several bills. "Here, take $60. That's enough for medicine and something else necessary." "Miss Hattie, that's too much," Keisha recoiled. "I need just a little for the fever reducer." "Take it," I said. "I live alone. My pension is decent. I have 2 children and they both help. I don't mind. And let me sit with Layla while you go to the pharmacy. You can't leave the girl alone, especially when she's sick." "Thank you so much." Tears streamed from Keisha's eyes. "You are saving me. I promise I will return everything at the first opportunity. As soon as I find a job, as soon as I get a paycheck." Miss Hattie hugged her by the shoulders. "Don't cry, silly. Everything will be fine. You'll see. Right now it seems like the end of the world, but in a month you'll look back and realize it was the best thing that could have happened to you." They went down to Keisha's apartment together. Layla had woken up and was lying with her eyes open, looking at the ceiling. Seeing her mother and the neighbor, she became wary. "Baby, this is Miss Hattie, our neighbor." Keisha sat on the edge of the bed. "She will sit with you while I go to the pharmacy for medicine." "Okay, will you come back?" the girl asked quietly. "Of course I'll come back, Sunshine. Very quickly." "Will Daddy come back?" The question caught Keisha off guard. She looked confusedly at Miss Hattie, then back at her daughter. "No, Layla, Daddy isn't coming back. He lives in a different place now." "Why?" "Because—" Keisha didn't know what to answer, how to explain to a 4-year-old child that her father had rejected them. "Because sometimes that happens," Miss Hattie intervened gently. "But the main thing is that Mama will always be with you, right, Keisha?" "Right?" Keisha nodded, kissing her daughter on the forehead. "Always." She quickly got dressed, grabbed her purse, and literally ran out of the apartment. It was a 15-minute walk to the nearest pharmacy. Keisha almost ran, clutching the bills in her pocket. Money. She had money. She would buy medicine, buy something to eat. At the pharmacy, she got the fever reducer and some inexpensive cough syrup just in case. The pharmacist, an elderly woman in a white coat, advised getting saline solution for rinsing the nose as well. "Does the child have a high fever?" she asked sympathetically. "Yes," Keisha nodded. "Then definitely plenty of fluids. If the fever doesn't go down in 2 days, go to the doctor. Don't delay." "Okay, thank you." On the way home, Keisha stopped at a small grocery store. She bought chicken breast, grains, milk. Mentally counting the money, she couldn't deny herself buying at least something nutritious for her daughter. When she returned, Miss Hattie was sitting next to Layla reading her a book. The girl listened, hugging a worn, plush rabbit. "And here's Mama," the neighbor smiled. "Layla and I have gotten to know each other better. She told me about her bunny, Fluffy." "Thank you so much." Keisha put the bags on the floor. "You can't imagine how grateful I am to you." "Anytime, Keisha." Miss Hattie stood up. "I'm lonely. Who else should I help? My children grew up, grandkids are in another city, so if anything happens, knock any time, and I can sit with Layla if needed." I don't know how to thank you." "Oh, come on," the neighbor waved her hand. "We're neighbors. People should help each other." When Miss Hattie left, Keisha gave her daughter the medicine and made her a nutritious salad. Layla ate a little and fell asleep again. The fever began to slowly drop, and Keisha sat at the table with her phone and started looking for work. She browsed listings on websites, called companies. Sales consultant. Experience in retail needed. Administrator. Irregular schedule. Weekends depending on the situation. Office manager. Higher education in the specialty required. "Hello, I'm calling about the secretary vacancy." "Yes, I'm listening. Is it still available?" "It is." "Do you have experience?" "Yes, I worked as an executive assistant for 3 years at—" "Good. Do you have open availability?" Keisha froze. She already knew where this question was leading. "I have a daughter, 4 years old." "I see. Unfortunately, we are looking for someone who can fully dedicate themselves to the job. There is overtime, business trips. With a small child, that's impossible, but I—" Click in the receiver. Keisha put the phone on the table and covered her face with her hands. That was already the 7th rejection. 7th in 2 hours. She dialed the next number, and the next, and one more. Everywhere the same answer. As soon as employers found out about the 4-year-old child, a polite rejection followed immediately. A small child meant sick leave, meant inability to stay late after work, meant constant problems with daycare. By evening, Keisha had called 32 places. Result: 0. She sat in the kitchen staring out the window. It was starting to get dark behind the glass. Layla was sleeping. Her temperature had dropped to 99. The medicine was helping. Food had appeared in the fridge, but this solved the problem for only a few days. And then what? Keisha didn't know the answer to that question. She didn't know at all. A month flew by in an endless series of interviews, rejections, and humiliation. Keisha got up early in the morning, made herself presentable, tried to look confident and competent. She left Layla with Miss Hattie and went to another interview. "Thank you for sitting with her again," Keisha said in a guilty tone, handing the neighbor the bag with toys for the girl. "Oh, stop it, Keisha," Miss Hattie waved it off. "It's a joy for me. Layla and I have fun together, right, sunshine?" The girl silently nodded, hugging the plush rabbit. In the offices, people looked at Keisha appraisingly, asked questions, looked through her resume, and then invariably asked, "Do you have reliable childcare?" "Yes, but she is 4 years old." "I see. We'll call you back." But no one called back. Keisha understood that with a small child, she was an undesirable candidate. Employers feared sick days, time off, the inability to stay late after work or come in on a weekend. Once at an interview, a female manager was more frank. Listen, I'm a mother myself. I understand you, but I have a business. I need a person I can rely on. And you with a 4-year-old child, that is a constant risk. Today the daughter has a fever. Tomorrow the daycare is closed for quarantine. The day after tomorrow, something else. I'm sorry, but no. Keisha walked out of the office silently, went down to the street, and burst into tears right near the entrance of the business center. Passers-by walked around her, not wishing to get involved with someone else's grief, while at home, Miss Hattie waited for her with another pie and a sympathetic look. Didn't get hired again? No. Keisha wiped her tears. Everywhere it's the same. As soon as they hear about Layla, it's okay, child. Something will turn up. The neighbor had become a real guardian angel for them. She not only babysat Layla, but regularly invited them for dinner, brought pies, groceries, sometimes even children's clothes, which, according to her, relatives had sent. Keisha felt awkward, ashamed to accept help, but it was thanks to this woman that they were still afloat. Miss Hattie, I will definitely pay back everything, Keisha repeated. Oh, stop with your payback, the neighbor grumbled. It's not shameful for people to help each other. By the end of the month, the situation became critical. The money Miss Hattie had given ran out. The neighbor offered more, but Keisha couldn't take any more debt, not knowing when she could return it. And then she went to the extreme measure. She took a job at a gas station. The job was unprestigious, the pay was low, the schedule was difficult. But there, they didn't ask about children, didn't require recommendations or higher education. They just needed working hands. When can you start? The manager asked. A man of about 40 with a tired face named Rick. Even tomorrow. Excellent. Schedule is 2 days on, 2 days off, 12-hour shifts. Salary is small, but there are tips. Can you handle it? I'll handle it, Keisha answered firmly, although inside everything shrank with horror. 12-hour shifts. That meant Layla needed daycare. Keisha enrolled her daughter in the nearest public daycare. The first morning at daycare was a nightmare. Layla clung to her mother's jacket, crying, screaming, "Mommy, don't leave me here!" "Baby, I have to go to work." Keisha crouched down, hugging her daughter. "There will be other kids here. You'll play, they'll read you stories." "I don't want to. I want to go home." The teacher, a woman of about 50 with a stern face, took weeping Layla into her arms. "Go, Mom. It's always easier this way. She'll calm down in 5 minutes." Keisha left, listening to her daughter's screams. She cried the whole way to the gas station, smearing mascara on her cheeks. The work turned out to be harder than she expected, standing on her feet for 12 hours in any weather, running out to cars, filling tanks, smiling at customers. The smell of gasoline seeped into her clothes, hair, skin. By the end of the first shift, Keisha was literally nauseous from the smell, but she held on. She had no choice. Layla wasn't adjusting well to daycare. Every morning the same scene repeated. Tears, screams, clinging to her mother. "Mommy, I don't want to go to daycare. They are mean to me there," the girl sobbed one evening when Keisha was picking her up. "Who is mean to you, baby?" Keisha asked anxiously, sitting down next to her daughter on the bench in the locker room. "Everyone. They don't like me." "What do you mean, everyone? What do they do?" They want me to play with them, and I don't want to." Layla buried her face in her mother's shoulder. "But why, Sunshine? They just want to be friends." "I don't know. I'm scared." Keisha talked to the teacher. She threw up her hands, looking at her with some judgment. "The children aren't being mean to your daughter. They just want to play with her." But Layla is a very withdrawn child. She sits in the corner all day with that rabbit of hers and doesn't talk to anyone. She doesn't participate in activities or join games. Maybe you should show her to a psychologist. "A psychologist?" Keisha went cold. "Well, for prevention. The child is clearly experiencing some stress. Is everything okay at home?" "Yes," lied Keisha. "Everything is fine." She took her daughter and led her home. Layla was silent the whole way, tightly gripping her mother's hand. At home, after putting the girl to bed, Keisha sat in the kitchen and let herself cry. She knew Layla was suffering because of her father leaving. The girl had become withdrawn and fearful, and Keisha couldn't help. She herself was barely holding on, and again the girl got sick. Fever, cough, runny nose. Keisha called the doctor, bought medicine with her last money. "Miss Hattie, I know I'm abusing your kindness, but—" she began, standing on the neighbor's doorstep. "You going to work?" "Of course I'll sit. Give me your little one." Keisha brought Layla to the neighbor, and she herself, sleep-deprived, with a headache and anxiety in her soul, went to the gas station, to the job that literally made her sick. But there was nowhere else to go. Another 2 weeks passed. Keisha worked herself to exhaustion, scrimped on everything, even food for herself. Layla got the best that could be bought on a meager salary, but Keisha contented herself with tea and cheap pasta. One evening, an expensive black SUV pulled into the gas station. Keisha mechanically walked up to the car and opened the tank. "Premium, full tank," the driver tossed out without even looking at her. "Okay." She filled the car, closed the tank. The man paid with a card and was about to leave when Keisha noticed a set of keys fall out of his pocket right onto the asphalt. "Wait, you drop this," she shouted, picking up the keys. The man stopped and lowered the window. Keisha handed him the keys and immediately fell silent, carefully examining the keychain. It was an unusual metal keychain. She recognized the work. "A very expensive keychain," she said, not taking her eyes off the item. "Your wife gave it to you." The man smirked. He was about 35, athletic build, expensive suit, confident look. Typical successful businessman. "What's unusual about it?" He shrugged. "Just a simple piece of metal." "Are you serious?" Keisha looked at him with surprise. "Before my daughter was born, I worked at a company where these were made to order. This is not a regular keychain. If light falls on it at a certain angle, you can see a message from the person who gave it." The man frowned. "What nonsense! My wife gave it to me." Ex-wife. She silently ran off with her lover without saying a word. Just vanished, and this keychain is the only thing left of her. She gave it to me just a few days before disappearing. "Can I check?" Keisha asked cautiously. The man smirked skeptically but handed her the keychain. "Yeah, go ahead. Let's look at this magic." Keisha took the keychain, took out her phone, and turned on the flashlight. She remembered the technology. She had once participated in creating such things herself. A specific angle and light intensity were needed. She slowly turned the keychain, directing the beam of light, and suddenly a projection appeared on the hood of the car. Thin letters written in elegant handwriting. "I'm sorry. I had to, so you wouldn't lose the business." The millionaire, who had walked closer, went cold when he saw what Keisha showed him. "That can't be," he whispered, looking at the words glowing on the hood. "And I thought all this time that she betrayed me, that she ran off with a lover because he was richer, more successful." He took the keychain with trembling hands and shone his own phone flashlight on it. The inscription appeared again. "So you wouldn't lose the business." What is she talking about? He was talking to himself. Keisha was silent, not knowing what to say. She saw how this self-confident man suddenly lost all his bravado, became confused and shocked. "Thank you," he finally squeezed out. "Thank you, I need to check something, urgently." He grabbed the keychain and quickly got into the car. The engine roared and the SUV tore off, nearly knocking over a promotional stand. Keisha watched him go, then returned to her workstation. The shift supervisor, a skinny guy of 25 named Rick, leaned out of the office. "What was that?" he yelled. "Nothing. A customer dropped his keys." "Got it. Come on, don't get distracted. A line is forming." And indeed, new cars were pulling up to the pumps. Keisha grabbed the nozzle again and started walking toward the cars, smiling at customers. The shift today was especially hard. Lots of people. Everyone in a hurry. Someone was rude. Someone tried to drive off without paying. By the end of the shift, her legs were buzzing, her back ached, and the suffocating smell of gasoline was stuck in her nose. Keisha changed in the back room and took out her phone. A message from Miss Hattie. "Layla ate and is sleeping. Don't rush." She sighed with relief. At least one less problem. On the way home, Keisha thought about that man with the keychain. She wondered what he would find out. What did that phrase about the business mean? Maybe his wife sacrificed their relationship to save his business. But why didn't she explain? Why didn't she tell him? Anyway, it was none of her business. She had her own problems. Paycheck would come only in a week, and very little money was left. Layla needed new shoes. The old ones were already too small. How to manage all this? Keisha went up to the 3rd floor and quietly knocked on Miss Hattie's door. She opened immediately, putting a finger to her lips. "Sleeping soundly? Got tired at daycare?" "Thank you so much," whispered Keisha. She carefully picked up her sleeping daughter, carried her to her apartment, and put her in the crib. Layla didn't even wake up, just mumbled something in her sleep and hugged her rabbit tighter. Keisha sat down nearby, stroking the girl's hair. They would manage. Somehow, they would manage. Several days passed since that strange incident with the keychain. Keisha continued to work at the gas station, getting used to the monotonous rhythm of shifts, filling cars, taking payment, smiling at customers, even when she just wanted to sit down and cry from exhaustion. The day was ordinary: gray sky, drizzling rain, a constant stream of cars. Keisha was working the day shift from 8 in the morning to 8 in the evening. It was already starting to get dark when a black car with tinted windows pulled into the station. Keisha mechanically approached the car, expecting the driver to roll down the window and say what gas he needed, but the window didn't go down. Instead, the door opened, and a man of about 40 got out, average height, in a dark jacket with a nervous face. He didn't even look at Keisha, just tossed out, "Regular, full tank." And without waiting for an answer, he headed toward the station building where the small convenience store was located. Keisha opened the tank, inserted the nozzle, and squeezed the handle. Gasoline poured into the tank with a characteristic sound. She stood watching the counter when suddenly she noticed the rear-tinted window of the car open slightly, literally a couple of inches. And then a crumpled piece of paper flew out from there. It fell right at Keisha's feet. Her first reaction was indignation. Keisha frowned, looking at the paper. "What do you think you're doing?" she said loudly, addressing the person sitting in the car. "Is it really that hard to throw trash in the bin?" The window immediately closed completely. The tint was so dark that it was impossible to see anything inside. Keisha stood there, not knowing what to think. Strange. Very strange. She looked at the paper at her feet, then back at the car. The pump clicked, tank full. Keisha took out the nozzle, closed the gas cap, and obeying some inner feeling, bent down and picked up the paper. At first, she wanted to just throw it in the trash can, but her hands unrolled the crumpled sheet on their own. The handwriting was uneven. The letters jumped as if the person was writing in a moving car or in a state of panic. But the words were legible. "Help, I'm being held by force." Keisha froze, rereading the phrase over and over. Her heart beat faster. Was this someone's idea of a joke? Or was someone really in danger? She quickly looked around. The man was still in the store. She saw his silhouette through the glass door. He was choosing something on the shelves. She had time. Keisha took out her phone and with trembling fingers dialed the police. "Police dispatch," a calm female voice answered. "Hello, I need help. I work at the gas station on the avenue. A black car came here, and a note was thrown from it asking for help. It says a person is being held by force." "Are you sure this isn't a prank?" "I don't know." Keisha squeezed the note in her hand. "But what if it's true? What if someone is in danger there?" "All right, state the address of the gas station and the license plate number." Keisha dictated the address and the car number. The operator wrote something down and asked clarifying questions. "A unit is on the way. Try not to attract attention and do not create a conflict situation. How many people are in the car?" "I don't know. The windows are tinted. The driver got out, but who else is in there? Can't see." "Understood. Stay on the line." But at that moment, Keisha saw the store door open, and the man headed back to the car. He had a bag of groceries in his hands. "He's coming back," Keisha said quickly into the phone. "Do not provoke a conflict. Wait for the police." But Keisha couldn't just stand and watch the car drive away. What if someone really was in trouble there? What if this was the last chance to help a person? She put the phone in her pocket and decisively stepped toward the driver, blocking his path to the car. "I won't let you go," she blurted out, spreading her arms to the sides. "You are holding a person by force. Open the car." The man stopped, staring at her with complete bewilderment. "What? What are you even talking about?" "A note was thrown from your car." Keisha held out the sheet to him. "It says here that a person is being held against their will." The man glanced at the note, and his face twisted with anger. "Hey, idiot, have you completely lost your mind?" He pushed her away with contempt, and Keisha barely kept her balance. "Why the hell are you meddling in my business? Step away from the car, immediately." Keisha tried to block his path again, but the man was stronger. He roughly shoved her aside. "Get lost, psycho!" "You have no right!" screamed Keisha, grabbing his jacket. "There is a person in there! Open the car!" A real scuffle began. The man tried to push Keisha away, and she, gathering all her strength, clung to the car door, preventing him from opening it. "They hire crazy people," the man yelled. "Where is management? I'm going to file a complaint." His shouts attracted attention. The gas station manager, Rick, heard the noise and saw the scuffle. He ran out of the building toward them, waving his arms. "What is going on? Keisha, what are you doing?" "I suggest firing this fool." The man didn't let up, finally breaking free from Keisha's grip. "She's throwing herself at people, accusing me of some nonsense." "You are holding a hostage in your car," Keisha continued to shout, pointing at the vehicle. "A note asking for help was thrown from the window." Rick grabbed her by the shoulders and pulled her aside. His fingers dug painfully into her arms. "Keisha, stop it. What are you doing?" "But there's a person there." She tried to break free. "Let me go." "What person?" Rick turned red with anger. "Are you completely crazy?" The man seized the moment, yanked the car door open, and got behind the wheel. The engine roared. "Don't let him go!" Keisha screamed desperately. "The police are already coming!" But the car had already taken off. Tires squealed on the asphalt, and the black car disappeared into the stream of traffic. "No!" Keisha tried to break out of the manager's grip, but he held tight. "Do you realize what you did?" Rick shook her by the shoulders. "You attacked a customer." "I didn't attack. I tried to help." Keisha handed him the crumpled note. "Here, look for yourself." Rick snatched the paper, quickly ran his eyes over the text. Doubt reflected on his face. "How do you know this isn't a prank? Maybe his kids are messing around, or a friend joked." "And what if it's not a prank?" Keisha exhaled. "If someone is really in trouble there?" They heard the sound of a siren. A minute later, a police car pulled up to the gas station. 2 officers got out. A man of about 50 with a mustache and a young policewoman. "Who called?" the man asked. "I did." Keisha stepped forward. "I work here." A black car came, and a note was thrown from it. She handed the sheet to the officer. He studied it carefully, then looked at Keisha. "Tell us everything in order." Keisha described the situation in detail. How the car arrived, how the driver went into the store, how the paper fell out of the window. The policewoman was writing something in a notebook. "Did you get the license plate number?" "Yes." Keisha dictated the number she had managed to memorize. "Good. Can you describe the driver?" "A man about 40, average height, dark hair, looked nervous, was wearing a dark jacket. Ordinary face, nothing special, acted aggressively when I tried to stop him. Pushed me, called me crazy." The male officer nodded and turned to his partner. "Run the plate through the database. Let's see whose car it is." The young woman stepped aside, took out her radio, and began to speak. Keisha stood shifting nervously from foot to foot. Rick stood gloomily silent nearby. A couple of minutes later, the policewoman returned. "The car is registered to Andrew Pierce, 42 years old, clean in the database, no violations." "That doesn't mean anything," grunted the mustached officer. "We'll check. We'll go to the registered address, have a talk. You did the right thing calling. We'll sort it out. If we find anything, we'll contact you for a statement." "But what if someone is really in danger there?" Keisha clenched her hands into fists. They already left. What if you're too late? We will do everything possible, but you shouldn't have engaged in conflict. It's dangerous for you and for the possible victim. The criminal could have reacted aggressively. But I couldn't just... I understand. The officer softened. But next time just call us and wait. Don't be a hero. The police left, leaving Keisha alone with the furious manager. Come into the office, Rick said coldly. Keisha silently followed him into the small room behind the store. Rick closed the door, sat at the table, and gestured for her to take the chair opposite. Do you realize what a scandal you caused? I tried to help a person, Keisha replied quietly. You attacked a customer. You started a fight in the workplace. Rick raised his voice. Are you thinking at all? There could have been a kidnapping victim, or there could have been nothing. Do you know how much we lost because of you? That guy is going to bury us in complaints with every agency now. You'll ruin our reputation. I don't care about reputation when someone's life is at stake. Well, that's wonderful. Rick leaned back in his chair. Because as of today, you are fired. The words hit like a slap in the face. Keisha went cold. What? You are fired for violating labor discipline, for aggression toward a customer, for creating a conflict situation. Pack your things and get out. But I just tried. I don't care what you tried. Rick was already taking some papers out of a drawer. I can't risk the business because of your heroic impulses. Here is the termination notice. Sign here. Rick, please. Keisha's voice trembled. I have a daughter. I need this job. I won't do it again. Yeah, you won't because you don't work here anymore. Sign it, I said. Keisha looked at the extended sheet of paper. Her hands were shaking. She took the pen and signed. The letters blurred before her eyes from tears. You'll get your final pay on your card within 3 days, Rick said dryly. You can go. Keisha stood up on cottony legs and left the office. In the back room, she changed, gathered her few belongings, a spare sweater, an umbrella, a makeup bag, shoved everything into her bag. Leaving the gas station territory, she looked back. Rick was already filling up another car, smiling busily at the customer, as if nothing had happened. But for Keisha, a catastrophe had happened. She was left without a job again, without means to survive again, and this time, not even through her own fault, she just tried to help. The cold evening wind hit her face. Keisha zipped up her jacket and slowly walked to the bus stop. There was emptiness in her head. What now? What would she tell Miss Hattie? How would she pay for daycare? What would she feed Layla? Her phone rang in her pocket. Keisha took it out. Unknown number. Hello, she answered wearily. Keisha Vance? Asked an unfamiliar male voice. This is Julian Thorne. We met a few days ago. You helped me with the keychain. Keisha stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. Yes, I remember. Did something happen? No, on the contrary, everything is good. Thanks to you, I found my wife. We cleared everything up. She really did sacrifice our relationship to save my business from a competitor. Now we are together again. I'm very happy for you. Keisha didn't understand why he was calling. I wanted to thank you personally and found out that you were fired from the gas station. How do you know? I have my sources, Julian chuckled. Tell me, are you free tomorrow morning? I would like to talk to you about a job. Keisha couldn't sleep all night. She lay staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation with Julian Thorne in her head. A job. He offered her a job. But what kind, in what company, on what terms? He didn't explain clearly, just set a meeting for the morning. What if it was another deception? What if he just pitied her in a burst of gratitude and then would change his mind? Thoughts spun in her head in an endless carousel, giving no peace. When it started to get light outside, Keisha gave up, got out of bed, went to the kitchen, brewed herself strong tea, and sat at the table, clasping the hot mug with her palms. Tears rolled down her cheeks on their own. She was left without a job again. How to live now? How to feed the child? The final pay from the gas station would come in 3 days, but that money would last a maximum of 2 weeks if she really scrimped. And then what? Ask Miss Hattie again? Get into debt again that she didn't know when she could pay back? Mommy! A quiet little voice made Keisha jump. She quickly wiped her tears and turned around. In the kitchen doorway stood Layla in her favorite pink pajamas, clutching the worn rabbit, Fluffy, to her chest. "Good morning, sunshine." Keisha forced a smile. "Why did you wake up so early?" "Am I not going to daycare today?" the girl asked, coming closer and hugging her mother. Keisha pressed her daughter to herself, burying her face in her soft hair. How to explain to a 4-year-old child that Mama lost her job again, that there was almost no money, that the future was foggy and scary? "No, baby, today you're staying home." She kissed Layla on the top of her head. "Yay!" the girl rejoiced. "That means we'll be together all day." "Yes, we'll be together. But why were you crying?" Keisha froze. She thought she had managed to wipe her tears, but the child noticed anyway. "I wasn't crying. My eyes are just tired," she lied. "Mommy, don't lie." Layla put a small palm on her mother's cheek. "You're sad. Is it because of Daddy?" "No, sunshine. Mama is just going through a tough time, but everything will be okay, I promise." Keisha made breakfast, oatmeal with milk and apple slices. Layla ate slowly, talking about something from daycare, about the teacher, about a boy named Sasha who took her doll yesterday. "Did you hit him back?" Keisha tried to joke. "No, I cried," the girl answered seriously. "The teacher scolded him and gave the doll back." After breakfast, Keisha sat her daughter down to draw, and she herself picked up her phone and opened the job sites again. But the letters blurred before her eyes. She couldn't concentrate. All her thoughts were about the upcoming meeting with Julian Thorne. At 9 in the morning, the doorbell rang. She went to the door, looked through the peephole, and gasped in surprise. On the landing stood Julian Thorne in the flesh, tall, in an expensive gray suit, with the confident posture of a successful man. Keisha quickly ran a hand through her hair, straightened her old housecoat, and opened the door. "You—" She rounded her eyes in surprise. Julian smiled. "Forgive me for coming without warning. I know it's impolite to come to people's homes so early, but I needed to see you as soon as possible." "Come in." Keisha stepped aside, letting him in. Julian walked into the small hallway and looked around. Keisha felt awkward. The apartment was modest, old. No renovations had been done for 10 years. Against the background of his expensive suit, all this looked especially wretched. "Sorry for the mess," she mumbled. "It's fine." Julian walked into the room. Layla was sitting at the table drawing. Seeing the strange man, she became wary and hugged her rabbit. "This is my daughter, Layla," Keisha introduced. "Nice to meet you." Julian crouched down, getting on the girl's eye level. "What a beautiful bunny you have. What's his name?" "Fluffy," Layla answered quietly. "Great name. And what are you drawing?" "Flowers for Mommy." "Wonderful. Please continue." Julian straightened up and turned to Keisha. "Can we talk?" "Yes, of course. Have a seat." Keisha pointed to the sofa. They sat down. Keisha nervously fiddled with the edge of her robe. "I was told you were fired from the gas station," began Julian. "Yes." Keisha lowered her head, feeling her cheeks burn with shame. "Last night." "For what, if it's not a secret?" Keisha briefly retold the story with the note and the police. Julian listened attentively, not interrupting. "So you tried to help a person who was possibly in danger, and you got fired for it?" "The manager said I created a conflict situation and attacked a customer." Keisha chuckled bitterly. "He's probably right. I shouldn't have interfered." "No," said Julian decisively. "You did the right thing. You didn't walk past someone else's trouble. There are few people like that now." Keisha raised her eyes to him, sincerity red in his eyes. "Do you really think so?" "Absolutely," nodded Julian. "You know, I didn't come here for nothing. I wanted to personally thank you. Thanks to you, I found my wife, and we managed to talk." "And how did it go?" Keisha couldn't resist asking. "Did you make up?" "More than that." Julian smiled. Turns out Elena sacrificed our relationship for the sake of my business. She knew how much effort I put into it, how hard everything was. And when my competitor decided to destroy me, he gave her an ultimatum. What ultimatum? Keisha listened with bated breath. Either she leaves me and lives with him, or he uses his connections and bankrupts me completely. He had compromising materials, fabricated documents. He could have buried my business in a week. Oh my God, whispered Keisha. And she agreed. She loved me so much that she decided to sacrifice herself. Julian's voice became quieter. She left without explaining the reasons. I thought she found someone better, richer. I hated her. And all this time she endured that monster so I could save my life's work. Your wife loves you very much if she went to such lengths, Keisha answered dryly, thinking of her own husband, who abandoned them without a second thought. Yes, I didn't deserve her. Julian ran a hand over his face. But now everything will change. I found a way to handle that monster. I have good lawyers and connections. He will answer for everything he did. And Elena and I will be together again. I am very happy for you, said Keisha sincerely. Thank you so much. Julian extended his hand to her. If not for you, I never would have known the truth. I would have lived with hatred for the woman who sacrificed everything for me. After a minute of silence, he spoke again. Keisha, I know you have problems with work right now. Julian leaned back on the sofa. I want to help you. Help? Keisha became wary. How? I have a large company. We deal with logistics and transportation. Right now, I happen to need an assistant, a personal assistant, a person I could trust. Keisha was silent, not believing her ears. You want to hire me? Exactly, nodded Julian. The salary is decent, full benefits, schedule is negotiable. You have a child, and if you need to leave early sometimes or come later, it's not a problem. The main thing is that the work is done with quality. But why me? Keisha looked at him confusedly. You don't know me at all. I don't have experience working as an assistant. You have the main thing, Julian interrupted her. You are a decent person. You didn't walk past someone else's trouble at the gas station. You helped me with the keychain, although you could have just stayed silent. That is worth a lot. I don't know what to say. Keisha felt tears rising to her throat. Say yes, smiled Julian. Start at the office tomorrow. I'll teach you everything. I'll leave you the address. Keisha looked at Layla, who was concentrating on coloring another flower, then back at Julian. This was a chance, possibly the last chance to change her and her daughter's life. Yes, she said quietly. I agree. Excellent. Julian got up from the sofa. Then I expect you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Write down the address. He dictated the address of an office in the city center. Keisha wrote it into her phone with trembling fingers. And one more thing. Julian took an envelope out of his pocket. This is an advance for you. No, I can't. Keisha tried to refuse. You can, he insisted, holding out the envelope. You need to get yourself ready for your first day of work. Buy something professional for the office and get something for your daughter, too. She is so sweet. Keisha took the envelope with shaking hands and opened it. Inside lay bills. She quickly counted. That's too much, she whispered. That is your monthly advance, explained Julian. The salary will be more, but this is for the start. Goodbye, Keisha. See you tomorrow. He waved goodbye to Layla. Bye, beautiful. Take care of Mom. Bye, squeaked the girl, peeking out from behind the table. Keisha walked Julian to the door. When he left, she leaned her back against the closed door and slowly slid down to the floor. She was still clutching the envelope with money in her hands. Mommy, what is that? Layla walked up to her. It's a new life, baby, whispered Keisha, hugging her daughter. Our new life. The next day, Keisha got up early and got ready carefully. The previous evening she had managed to go to the store, bought herself a strict blouse, a pencil skirt, and shoes with small heels. Nothing expensive, but it looked decent and professional. She took Layla to daycare. The girl was fussy again, didn't want to let her mother go. "Baby, I have to go to work," Keisha explained patiently. "To the new job?" "Yes. There is a very good boss there. He helped us. And will you come for me?" "Of course I'll come. I promise." The office of Thorn Logistics was located in a modern business center downtown. Keisha walked into the spacious lobby with marble floors and high ceilings. She felt out of place. The security guard checked her ID and issued a pass. 10th floor. He pointed to the elevators. Keisha went up to the right floor. The elevator doors opened, and she found herself in a bright, spacious office. A young woman in glasses sat at the reception desk. "Hello, I'm Keisha Vance, here to see Julian Thorne." "Yes, come on in. They are expecting you." The girl smiled. She walked Keisha to an office at the end of the corridor. Julian was sitting at a large desk, typing something on a laptop. Seeing Keisha, he stood up. "Good morning. On time, excellent. Come in, sit down." Keisha timidly walked in and sat on the chair in front of his desk. "Nervous?" "A little," she admitted. "No need. I'll be a good boss, I promise." Julian smiled. "And I'll always be flexible if there are problems with your daughter or anything else. Your task is to help me with documents, meetings, calls. Nothing complicated. I'll introduce you to your colleagues now." The next hour was spent getting acquainted with the office, the employees, and the duties. Everyone was friendly and welcoming. Julian patiently explained, showed her things, and answered questions. By lunch, Keisha had settled in a little. She sat at her new desk, right next to Julian's office, sorting through documents, and for the first time in a long time, she felt something resembling hope. Keisha and Layla's life was beginning to get better. If you liked my story and want to hear more, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to support me, you can do it through Super Thanks. It would mean a lot. In the comments, tell me which city you're watching from and what time it is, so I can see how far my story reaches. I've added 2 more life stories on the screen just for you. Click one now, and let's keep spending time together. Much love. See you soon.